All right, we are live. Hello. Um, I am doing this a little bit later than usual tonight, so if you happen to be seeing this, thank you so much for joining. And I assume people will pop in and out because it's an unusual time. But as always, Den is here tonight helping out with moderation. So if you have questions during any of the stories, leave them in the comments. We'll get to them after stories and in between them. You can always support this channel by going to patreon.com/Hemant. I appreciate that. And if you don't want to give any money, you could still sign up for free at friendlyatheist.com to get access to all the articles. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I don't know how many people are watching. Whatever, we'll figure it out. So let me start off with a story. This is an incredible bit of hypocrisy that is just wonderful. I'm going to show you a clip in just a second. It involves a young woman. She's about 25 years old, and her name is Mylie Biggs. And she is a young conservative activist who happened to be doing a podcast. The name of the podcast is pretty irrelevant, but she was doing an interview as a young conservative on this podcast. And they were talking about what the proper role of women is. And I will let you listen to the clip and then we'll talk about what she actually says right after that.
Honestly, I don't know if I would vote for any female. I don't know if female should be in office.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really good women in office.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hate on anyone. Even like some really good congresswomen. I don't think women should hold office in general. It's a man's position.
Yeah.
That's my stance. I think women should, run the home. I just want to be a wife. I just want to be a mom. Like, that's what I want to do. And I think a lot of other women are waking up to that, too. They're like, I don't want a 9-to-5. I want to be a wife. I want to be a mom. Like, all the feminism leaving their bodies once they have to, do a 9-to-5.
Right.
And, like, I totally agree with that. And I think that applies to politics, too. Like, women are supposed to be the nurturers and, take care of the home, be mothers. And,
right.
Like, if you're out in Congress or out doing something else, like, what are your kids doing? Or, like, are you,
Yeah.
And, like, that's really what, I'm not trying to be sexist in any way. I truly believe that that's what women are really good at. That's where they, that's where they shine, is at home, taking care of kids, nurturing, whereas the men are really good at providing. And, like, biologically, that's how it works, too. I think that's how it was meant to be. And so, like, men in office is where I'm saying. That's where I'm at, because, like, I want to be at home.
Right.
I want to be a wife and a mom.
Okay, so you heard it. She made it very clear. It's not that this is just about her choice, because frankly, I don't really care what she chooses for her own life. But she said women are supposed to be nurturers, take care of the home. And she said, quote, I don't think women should hold office in general. It's a man's position. I think women should run the home. Which again, it's backwards. It's not just anti-feminist, because again, if that's what she wants for her life, I am not judging her for that decision. But she's not saying this is what I want and it's okay if other women choose differently. She's saying, no, if you're a woman in Congress, you are doing something wrong. She would never support a woman in Congress. She doesn't think women should be in Congress. Okay, so this idea that all women need to share her narrow-minded views, that's the problem here. It's ridiculous. And look, if this was merely the uninformed, very ignorant opinion of some random woman in her mid-20s, like I said, I mean, who cares? Perhaps you would even forgive her. She doesn't know any better, whatever. But she's not some random person, because even if you haven't heard her name before, Mylie Biggs is not some random person. First of all, she's the daughter of a congressperson, Representative Andy Biggs, who is a House member from Arizona, who is extremely conservative, who is a MAGA cultist, who just does whatever Trump says. So that's one thing. But again, this doesn't negate anything she said. But here's the thing I want to show you, because that podcast that I just showed you occurred about 1 year ago today. It was like August of 2024. And this is something she posted very recently. I am Mylie Biggs, I am running for state senate in this district, and I'm grateful to run with great conservatives, these two representatives. So she is running for state senate in Arizona, and she's not just doing it by herself. She is running alongside two state house members. Like, she's running together jointly with them. Hey, you vote for one of them, you vote for all of them. So she's piggybacking on the success of two conservatives who are already currently in office. What else did she say in this announcement? Ronald Reagan said, and anytime a conservative begins anything with Ronald Reagan said, you can ignore the rest of it. And what else do we got here? My parents taught me to love my country, the Constitution, and to value my freedoms. I've watched so many good people in my life serve this country in the military and in public office. I, too, seek to serve. Not according to the Mylie who spoke, I don't know, less than a year before posting this. She says, I love my Father in heaven and strive to do his will. And then I thought this was a Bible verse for a second. It's actually a line from Battle Hymn of the Republic. As he died to make men holy, let us live to make men free. And then to sign her petition to run for office. So this lady is running for office after saying women should not be in office. How's that for a campaign start? This is our friend Mylie here. There's her campaign. Mylie Biggs, State Senate 26. Those are two other Republicans she is running with. Ridiculous. So, what do you make of this? The funny thing is, there is a local Arizona news outlet in Phoenix. They reached out to her. They're like, hey, funny thing about your campaign here. We heard what you said on a podcast recently. Do you have anything to say about those comments you made? And this is hilarious. Not only did she not respond to that reporter, one of the Republicans who was running on her slate did not respond to that reporter. What about the third Republican on their ticket? That person finally did respond. Check this out. This is from the Phoenix New Times. Biggs did not respond to questions from Phoenix New Times about her comments, nor did Hendricks. After this story published, the third Republican, Powell, told New Times that I know Mylie and have complete trust in her, which is a weird response to a question nobody was asking. It's not like she was ad-libbing on this podcast either. This isn't something she accidentally blurted out because, and I know this, because she appeared back on that same podcast last December for a second appearance. And guess what she said that time? Guess what? I got a clip for you. Here's the setup for it. Have you seen maps like this one? You might have online, where they say someone on TikTok looked at the voting demographics, and this is a map of if only women voted. What would have happened in the 2024 elections if only women voted? And according to this made-up chart, Kamala Harris would have dominated the Electoral College. I don't actually know if this is accurate, but that's not the point. The point is, a lot of those maps are out there. They exist. They suggest that if, only young people voted, it would be like all Democrats. And if only women voted, it would be a Democratic route. Well, on that podcast appearance in December, her second appearance, the host asked, hey, have you seen those interesting maps? What does that tell us about the way women vote? And guess how she responded to that comment? Let me play you the clip.
Have you seen those comparisons of electoral maps from elections ago? We're talking Reagan era and now.
Oh, and it's so incredibly red everywhere.
Yeah, it's all of this is red. Yeah.
Even.
Yeah, it's all red, and then Florida's blue. And
yeah,
you're
crazy.
And now it's just completely different.
Have you seen those ones where it's if women were the only ones to vote, what it would look like? And it's literally 80% blue. And you're
really?
Whoa.
That's interesting.
Repeal the 19th.
Repeal the 19th. That's her comment. We should take away women's right to vote. So here's where we're at right now. The candidate who is running because she said her parents taught her to value her freedoms, was just months ago suggesting those very freedoms should be taken away from women. Women who, let me repeat, she doesn't believe should be running for office in the first place. So, what are we doing here, people? So despite that initial bravado where she announced her campaign, she's like, I'm doing this. Let me quote all my heroes. Here's Reagan. Here's something about God. By the way, she said, my father in heaven. That's not necessarily a thing you expect to hear from like conservative Christians. She's actually Mormon. Her father is Mormon as well. But like the weird thing is, she announced that back in June, like about a month and a half ago. And in that time since, it doesn't look like there's any kind of campaign actually happening. According to the Phoenix New Times, once again, this is what they said about her campaign. Let me show you this. Since that announcement, little else has happened with Biggs' campaign. Nice wordplay there. Biggs still has not filed a campaign finance report, even though the report for the second quarter of 2025 was due on July 21st. Her candidate profile on the Arizona Secretary of State's office shows that she has not raised any money yet. And, maybe that's fine because the election, even the primary election, this is one of those red districts where all that matters is who wins the primary, and the primary is 1 year out. So maybe she's like, I don't need to raise money yet. But as far as I can tell, she doesn't have a campaign website. She doesn't have any real campaign social media. It's just her personal page. And it doesn't look like she's collecting money, donations from anybody. So what I'm trying to figure out, and I don't have an answer for it yet, is did she announce that campaign, realize that people can see things she said on the internet, and then back off? But she doesn't want to say that out loud because it's embarrassing? Or because I looked at her social media. Other than her campaign announcement, she hasn't added one original thought on Twitter. Like, it's just been retweets of other conservatives saying conservative things, but she hasn't posted anything about her campaign. It doesn't look like there is a campaign. I don't know what's going on with her. So maybe it's early. Maybe she's too busy at work. She worked for some right-wing group called the Arizona Free Enterprise Club. Maybe she realized that her own hypocrisy is going to sink her campaign even before it really begins. Maybe she realized, oh, a 9-to-5 job that I have right now, it's hard work. I don't want to do more hard work. I guess I should just be at home. And as far as I know, she's not married and doesn't have kids. So, like, maybe she just wants to be at home doing nothing, which, again, your choice. I don't know. I don't know that saying idiotic things is the sort of thing that would push her out of a race. Because, like, her father literally built his entire political career on saying dumb things and then getting attention for them and then getting donations for that stuff. So, like, he's a conspiracy nutcase. I find it hard to believe his daughter's going to be like, I'm not going to run for office because I said something stupid on the internet and now everyone's using it against me. In fact, according to the Phoenix New Times, she actually said one other thing on a podcast. And I'm going to quote here, I love the conspiracies. Don't get me started on 9/11. That's a real thing she said. It wasn't a joke. So, please elaborate, Mylie. We must hear more about your thoughts on 9/11. So I have to think there are Republicans who are going to be entering this primary against her who cannot wait to play these clips in a campaign ad for themselves. But, like, let's be clear. This is not some quirky contradiction or an oops moment. Because, like, plenty of right-wing Republican women, they're like, women should be at home. They should be not running for office. They shouldn't be doing a man's job, except for podcasting, which they definitely think they can all do. But this is a preview of what's to come. Mylie Biggs is a candidate who says women should not have the right to vote, doesn't think women should be in elected office, and now she wants to get elected to office, so she has the opportunity to take more freedoms away from other women. Like, a candidate who insists women should be at home will try to make sure the law shoves them there. So she's not running to represent women. She's running to erase them. She doesn't want to serve, like her announcement said. She wants to rule. She has no problem cashing in on the very rights she wants stripped from other women. And in fact, if you look at her campaign poster that she posted on Twitter, her campaign picture, she is smiling while openly professing that women don't belong in public life. She's one of those women who wants to climb up a ladder that other women put there for her. And then as soon as she makes it to the top, she wants to take that ladder away from everybody else, depriving them of the opportunities that she has. So anyway, this primary is set for August 4th of 2026. It is a year from now. There's plenty of time between now and then for Mylie Biggs to say a bunch of other really dumb things, or for people to go back through her podcasting history and figure out what other dumb shit she said as well. I don't know if she's a serious candidate or not, but this is not a good start. I find it very amusing that the headlines are just tailor-made for this. Candidate who doesn't think women should be in public office announces run for public office. What do you, it's set up, like it's teed up, hit a home run with that. All right, I'm going to stop there. What questions we got here? Is there a new blue thing behind me? I have no idea. I didn't make any changes, so I don't even know what we're talking about. I don't think there is. What else we got here? Anything else? A teardrop? This. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, but this is an award I got from the American Humanist Association. They're a humanist media award for the stuff I write about and do on YouTube. So it was a very nice award. All right, I'm going to jump to the next story, and hopefully there are more of you joining us. Good evening. Glad you're with us. Thanks for sticking with me because I know it's a late night tonight. Let me pull this up really quick. Okay. Let me start this with a quick story. For those of you who are old enough to remember this, do you remember in 2008, Barack Obama is running for president and his campaign almost gets derailed because people find clips of things his pastor said during sermons. And Barack Obama was like blamed for this, or he couldn't wipe it away from himself. Basically, his then pastor's name is Jeremiah Wright, and he said a lot of things about America is not great. America has it coming because of things we have done, like the chickens are coming home to roost. Out of context, didn't sound very good. In context, it made a little more sense, but it still didn't sound very good. But Republicans were very quick to say, look, Barack Obama, guy with the scary name, has this scary anti-American pastor, and we're going to use it against you because nothing else seems to be working. And Obama later gave a speech where he said, look, I don't agree with the guy, but you want me to, erase my pastor? I can't do that. I have plenty of people in my life. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I have plenty of people in my life, he said, who I can't just disown. They are part of me, but it doesn't mean I agree with everything they say. But at the end of the day, Barack Obama did resign his membership from that church and tried to he gave a speech and then distanced himself from Jeremiah Wright. So that's the sort of thing that can happen when your pastor says something that doesn't make you look good as a politician. And I was thinking about that when I heard about what happened with Pete Hegseth. Because Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary and former Fox News anchor on the weekends, and notorious drunk, and guy who's probably most famous so far for telling classified secrets on a group chat that included a journalist who wasn't supposed to be there, that guy, he attends a church headed up by this patriarchal, conspiracy-spewing preacher named Doug Wilson. And if you don't know Doug Wilson, this is Doug Wilson. He looks like a guy who thinks men should rule the world. Pete Hegseth even sends his children to a school that's affiliated with Doug Wilson's church. Well, the reason you may have seen this in the news, the reason this made news is because last week CNN aired a segment about Doug Wilson. Because it's not just some random preacher, this guy. Doug Wilson just started a brand new church, an extension of his church in Washington, D.C., Why? So he could be closer to the center of power. Because Doug Wilson really sees himself as a Republican politics, and he's just trying to set up shop in Washington, D.C. So CNN did a segment on who is this Doug Wilson? What's his deal? And one of the things that they mentioned is like Doug Wilson was very open in this segment about his theocratic fantasies. And listen, I would love to show you a clip, but I know damn well that if I do, CNN will take down this entire live stream, so I'm not doing it. But one of the things Doug Wilson said, and I'm quoting here, I would like to see the town be a Christian town. I'd like to see the state be a Christian state. I'd like to see the nation be a Christian nation. I would like to see the world be a Christian world. That was his response to basically a question saying, are you a Christian nationalist? And he's like, yes. So what's wrong with that? I want to see everything be Christian. And then they, like, when he started talking about women, because he doesn't have a good reputation with women, here's how he described women. Women are nothing more than, and I'm quoting here, the kind of people that people come out of. That's it. His definition of woman is something humans come out of. That's all they're good for. They're birth machines. They have no other value in his mind. That was the implication. He said they should be submissive to their husbands. And importantly, in his ideal world, women would not be allowed to vote. He didn't say that, but that is the implication. In fact, one of Wilson's fellow pastors said on camera in that CNN segment that he supported repealing the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. And by the way, this was not in the segment, but the introduction did point out that Wilson believes abortion should be criminalized, that homosexuality should be criminalized. I'm going to share with you, if you don't know this about this guy, do you know what else Doug Wilson has said? This is an actual tweet from 2015 here. Why sodomy is worse than slavery. He thinks two men having sex willingly is worse than slavery. What else has Doug Wilson said? Well, here's something he's said. This is just disturbing. Abortion is at least as great an evil as slavery was. Abortion is at least as great an evil for Black culture as slavery was. Because you know what's worse than like owning someone's body, letting them have control of their own body? He also has said, Doug Wilson has also said, slavery is a net positive. And look at this quotation from an article about this guy. He's written this in a book. This wasn't an ad lib either. Check this out. He said that in spite of the evils contained in the system, we cannot overlook the benefits of slavery for both Blacks and whites. I'm sorry, what? The benefits of slavery for Blacks. I got to highlight that so I don't forget that ever. Slavery produced in the South a genuine affection between the races that we believe we can say has never existed in any nation before the war or since. Yeah, guys, why don't you give more credit to how good slavery was? Because you know what Black people got out of slavery? Genuine affection for the whites. What the hell is he talking about? Now, Wilson has said this is taken out of context or so. You tell me what context could possibly make this sound any better. Like, he's just a thoughtless, heartless, patriarchal preacher. Okay. He also, by the way, there are articles about this. He protects abusers over the abused. He also doesn't believe. Here's a headline from last month, in case you think I'm only showing you old stuff. Pastor Doug Wilson, I don't think a Muslim should be able to hold political office. That's a quote. He has said that about Muslims. He doesn't think Hindus should be allowed to hold office. He also doesn't think liberal Christians should be allowed to hold office because they're not true Christians. And I think it's safe to say this would all apply to atheists as well. So this is Doug Wilson. This is the guy whose church Pete Hegseth attends, whose schools he sends his children to. And in case you forgot, because, the election was 20 years ago at this point, Pete Hegseth also made news last year because people realized he had this tattoo that he was showing off on Instagram somewhere. It says Deus Vult. What did that mean? That meant God wills it, which he said it just means I'm a good Christian, basically. And the reason this made the news is because his colleagues in the National Guard saw that tattoo and they knew that's not what you get if you're just a regular Christian. That's the sort of tattoo that is very popular with the Proud Boys, the Three Percenters, other right-wing extremist groups that participated in the January 6th siege. So Pete Hegseth has his own disturbing past with Christianity. And as you may have seen in recent weeks, as defense secretary, Pete Hegseth has purged women from top ranks. He has held Christian prayer services during work hours at the Pentagon. And I think just this week, they announced that if you are a transgender person in the military and you've been serving for like over 15 years, you are no longer eligible for a pension. You're not going to get it because Pete Hegseth doesn't like you and he just wants to discriminate, and he can because no one's stopping him. So Pete Hegseth goes to a church attended by Doug Wilson, and when CNN aired this segment about how disturbing Doug Wilson's beliefs are, what did Pete Hegseth do? He did this. He shared the segment. Look, I mean, this is, I think, Doug Wilson's book publishing wing. But they said, full CNN segment on Doug Wilson's crusade for Christian domination in the age of Trump. And Hegseth quote tweets that with all of Christ for all of life. Which, depending on how you want to interpret that, is either his personal philosophy, like Christian for life, or it's a threat to everybody outside their bubble. I think that is something Hegseth says. It's just something we say at the end of church services. Which, okay, that's a weird closing line. You could just say amen and leave. But okay. So in a normal world, that sort of endorsement from Pete Hegseth in favor of Doug Wilson in a segment where Doug Wilson's colleagues said women should not have the right to vote in an ideal world, that would be disqualifying. But when you are a defense secretary who has already leaked classified documents in a group chat, and you are surrounded by Republican MAGA cultists who have no principles, there's not even an eyebrow that is getting raised. Mind you, if a Democrat did any of this shit, people would lose their minds, especially if the person we're talking about did not hold conservative Christian beliefs. But again, there's no way to play the hypocrisy game with Republicans because they have no shame. So Donald Trump held a press conference this week. Pete Hegseth was standing right behind him, and I don't think there was a single reporter that asked any questions about why Pete Hegseth goes to a church backed by someone who doesn't think women should have these basic rights. They just didn't even ask him. So he's not going to get any pushback from this. In fact, when some reporters finally asked the Pentagon for comment, this is an article from Salon, but check out what they said here. Asked for comment, Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell defended Hegseth's association with Wilson. The secretary is a proud member of a church affiliated with the Congregation of Reformed Evangelical Churches, which was founded by Pastor Doug Wilson. The secretary very much appreciates many of Mr. Wilson's writings and teachings. Okay, but that's not what the question was. Why can't any of these people answer basic questions? But they did get a quotation from Doug Wilson. Wilson, for his part, said that Hegseth and the department he leads are not organizationally tied to his ministries. No one said they were. But said Hegseth's close involvement is the kind of thing we like to see. I'm sure it is. But again, none of these people are willing to just address the obvious question, which is that the Secretary of Defense belongs to a church that says women should not have the right to vote. At least in their view, if they had complete power or they could go back in time, they certainly wouldn't have allowed that to happen. And if they could take it away right now, they would. That's who Republicans are electing. Just the unqualified alcoholic leader of the Defense Department endorsing a pastor who promotes Christian nationalism and doesn't think women should vote. Hey, liberals, why are you making such a big deal about this? And what is terrifying to me is that none of this will matter for most of the Republican base, because nothing Trump did mattered to the Republican base. 80% of white evangelicals will continue to back the Trump administration's incompetence and cruelty, and nothing he does will ever change their minds because they're in a cult. Like, they will treat any criticism of Hegseth and Doug Wilson as anti-Christian, as opposed to what it really is. And they will keep their mouths shut if they have any actual reservations about what they said. You cannot count on religious conservatives today to be voices of ethics or morality, because they have no problem normalizing an openly authoritarian, misogynistic, theocratic vision for America at the highest levels of government. And the thing is, Hegseth isn't just tolerating what Wilson said. He is openly celebrating it. You saw the tweet. The fact that the Pentagon itself is defending this association, that should infuriate people. I mean, it should frighten people too. Like, if they had their way, liberty and freedom would only belong to those who bow down to their God and their way and their church. And if conservative Christians and other Republicans are not going to say anything about this, then the rest of us need to condemn this as loudly as possible. And by the way, I was looking this up today. I saw this headline from the Associated Press, and the headline made me laugh. Let me show this to you. This is a real headline put out by the Wire services, if it will allow me to show it to you here. Here we go. Check this out. Pentagon says Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth supports women's right to vote. And here's the very brief story. Someone asked, hey, what do you think about your pastor saying women shouldn't be allowed to vote? Of course, the secretary, Pete Hegseth, thinks that women should have the right to vote. That's a stupid question, to be honest with you, Pentagon's press secretary Kingsley Wilson told reporters Thursday. So the defense secretary's like, his spokesperson is like, yes, he believes in basic fundamental rights. How dare you even ask us that question? You know why they're asking the question? Because he goes to church and we've heard what his pastor has to say. I can't believe this isn't a bigger story. It should be a bigger story. Why isn't it a bigger story? Because nothing matters anymore. That's what's so infuriating about this. These things that should disqualify a candidate and have Pete Hegseth resigning in a heartbeat, it does absolutely nothing. Because again, there are no Republicans willing to say anything pressuring him to step down. All right, what questions we got here? I think, as Hegseth was telling us about Project 2025, that not only will they try to take the vote from women, but they're going to bar them from public office. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene is freaking out. See, I don't know that they will go that far, but I do think when they say things like this, when the pastor says something like this, it's not that they're going to do it. It's that they definitely are winking to their base. Like, yeah, we know we like saying this, because it's not that they necessarily believe it or that they want to do it. It's that they know it pisses off liberals. And that is their only goal in life. They don't want to make life better for Americans. They just want to piss off Americans they hate. That's, if you go by that philosophy, it describes every single thing Donald Trump does. It's not to make the country better. It's to make the right people angry. And as long as he can make liberals angry, Republicans will always let other Republicans get away with it. What other questions? Every time Wilson talks about slavery, he never imagines himself as the slave. No kidding. Because, of course, God would never let that happen, you guys. He always sees himself as superior, which is hilarious because, like, the dude doesn't look like he's superior to anybody. But he's like, I have a beard. I'm a white man. Listen to me. Everything I say is authoritative. And seriously, he has a lot of people in Moscow, Idaho, who are like, yes, I will go along with everything you say because I don't want to think for myself. Thinking is hard. You do it for me. Sometimes I wonder how aware of their own hypocrisy they are. The irony is that these zealots genuinely think they're the righteous good people and not the villains. I don't think they are aware of their own hypocrisy because they always rationalize the hypocrisy. Like, you guys are misunderstanding it because you don't get it. I get it because of Jesus. But they really do think they are the good guys in this story. This is, again, all these Republicans think they are saving the country. And it's why the rest of us are freaking out. It's why I got so mad even last week, unrelated to this story, but it's why I get so mad when supposedly liberal scientists like Lawrence Krauss, like Richard Dawkins, and all them who should know better they just promote these right-wing talking points. Like, who's the big threat to science in America? It's left-wing college students with blue hair. Like, no, it's the Trump administration taking away science funding from colleges and grant giving foundations across the country. That's decimating science, not like, let's give a scholarship to Black people. And yet they fuel all those right-wing talking points. Like, that pisses me off because they cannot understand that the right-wing people are the villains. They haven't figured it out yet. So they're trying to get on. I don't know who they're trying to impress. They're so reflexively contrarian that they have now flipped to the other side and haven't figured out they're on the bad side. I don't know. Oh, why isn't it a bigger story? Because the dictator is in charge. And not only is the dictator in charge, he's surrounded by people who just want to suck up to him. I think Kamala Harris said this when she was on Stephen Colbert's show last week, where nothing Trump is doing is surprising to her, but she was surprised by how quickly Republicans capitulated to him. She said something like that. I don't think I'm surprised by that, frankly, because I don't know. I've been around the past 20 years, at least in my political cognizant life, and Republicans have never been the party of reason. They've always been the anti-intellectual party. And so I don't know why you would think they're finally going to do the right thing when they've never done that in the past. So it's not just that the dictator's in charge. It's that you have people who think they want to be on the side of the dictator, so they're not standing up to him either. And it very much feels like we, the reasonable ones, are in the minority. That's why you get hope when someone like Zoran Mamdani gets people's attention. Or Gavin Newsom today, as we're making this video, got attention for his press conference. I don't even like Gavin Newsom. But man, at least he's doing something today. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll take what I can get. And I'm lucky. I live in Illinois. J.B. Pritzker has been really good and outspoken about this stuff. But he doesn't have the power that the Republican majority does. So it's not enough right now, but you have to count on those things to get you through this. All right, I'm going to jump to a different story. Give me 1 second. Okay. I thought I would break this up with at least one semi-non-serious story because the Pete Hegseth thing was going to rile me up anyway. Okay. I'm going to show you a picture of this priest right here. Here he is doing whatever it is people do at Catholic churches. I don't know anymore. But this guy is Reverend Ross Miceli, M-I-C-E-L-I, and he works at a church called St. Jude the Apostle Church in Erie, Pennsylvania. And basically, he's been in the news recently for not so good reasons, but not because of what you might think, despite being a priest from Pennsylvania. Okay, so let me give you some background on this because this story is so wild. So his church, every year, they do this big raffle to raise money for the church's missionary work, for a lot of the stuff they do. And the way they do it is they hold a huge raffle. And let me tell you how this raffle works. They sell tickets worth $50, 50. These are expensive tickets in the raffle. So you can buy as many as you want. You could buy several tickets for a slightly cheaper price, whatever. And they hope they can sell like 9,999 of these. And every time you buy a raffle ticket, you get a 4-digit number. And that is your number in the big raffle. And if you do this, if you're selling $50 tickets and you're selling about 10,000 tickets, you would make $500,000. God, I hope my math is right. So that's how much you stand to make here. And the way this raffle works at this church is they say, look, I know you, since we're doing this, first of all, anyone can buy a ticket. You don't have to belong to the church. We want everyone in our church to spread the word, because if you have a family member, let's say, who lives in California and wants to support what we are doing, they can buy a raffle ticket online. So like they're willing to, anyone can buy the raffle ticket for the church. The way they pick the winners is you don't just want the priest picking a number out of a hat. There's too many ways that can be shady. So what they do is they say in Pennsylvania, they have a state lottery and they have a pick 4 game where they have 4 ping pong balls that come out, and it's already regulated. People trust it. It's safe. And it's not exactly the pick 4 game, but it's close enough to the pick 4 game. So what they say is in the 12 days leading up to Christmas, we're going to just see what the winning pick 4 lottery numbers were. And if that number corresponds to your raffle ticket, you win a prize from us. And it has nothing to do with the state lottery system, right? So what prizes are they giving away? Well, they have some raffles throughout the year just to whet people's appetite where they give away $500 at a time. All right, very cool. They also give away like $1,000 in cash. They give away $1,500 in cash and gift cards to different places. The runner-up on like December 23rd, the runner-up this year was eligible for a Norwegian cruise to the Caribbean. Or if you didn't want to go on the cruise, you could just take $5,000 in cash. Pretty nice for the second place winner. And if you won the grand prize on December 24th, the grand prize, and I got to read this so I get this right. This is in 2024, December 2024. The grand prize winner got an orange Corvette Stingray 1LT, which is apparently very fancy because the car is worth $82,000. And if you didn't want the car, you could take a lump sum $50,000 in cash. So not a bad raffle if you want to get in on this. Anyway, and it was a huge moneymaker for this church. They've been doing this for several years. And I will actually show you, there is a website that the church has for this particular lottery. And you could just check this out, like win a Corvette Stingray. Yeah, it's a convertible. What else do they got here? This is from last year. You could win the car or $50,000 in cash. Very nice. It's going to benefit St. Jude the Apostle. Okay, there's the cruise vacation. Very nice. And they also have a list of their past winners, which is very cool. And look at this. This is the couple that won a car in 2023. They chose not to take the car. They chose the $50,000 in cash, but good for them. And in 2022, what do we have here? These people won the Corvette and they drove it back to Indiana. Okay. I mean, fine. Yes, this raffle's been going on for a while. So why is this a story? Because this year on Facebook, this church announced on Christmas Day, hey, we did our grand prize drawing. Again, you could look at the date line here, December 25th, 2024. December 24th, grand prize, Corvette or $50,000 in cash. Those were the winning lottery numbers. And check this out. The winner is Martin Anderson from Detroit, Michigan. And everybody, you could see it right over here. He chose the cash option. So he didn't want the car. He chose the cash. All right. I mean, if I saw this on Facebook, on the church's raffles Facebook page, I would think, all right, I didn't win. Good for Martin. All right, I'm glad I supported a good cause, whatever. So again, none of this seems all that weird. There's nothing shady about the church holding a raffle or anything like that. Here's where things get weird. According to the Erie Times News newspaper, they published a story about this raffle recently because I'm going to just show you this little excerpt right here. Anderson chose the $50,000 in cash, Miss Selly said in naming him as the winner in that post I just showed you. Anderson, however, did not hold the winning ticket in the car raffle. He never bought a ticket at all. In fact, if you read the rest of this article, you find out there is no such person, as Martin Anderson, the Reverend, just made that name up. It was a fake name. He put it on the post. He said, this dude won. That guy doesn't exist. And now the question is, well, then why did he do that? Did the priest pocket the money? Did he steal the car? What the hell is going on here? And apparently, this is where it gets even more interesting. The reason we know this at all, the reason the reporter for the newspaper knew this, is because apparently the priest told one of his minions at the church, hey, guess what I just did? Or here's what I just did. And the person who heard that story is like, I don't think you're allowed to do that. And then he told the bishop of the diocese. And the bishop is like, oh no, this is bad. I should tell law enforcement. Because unlike a sex predator confessing to a horrible crime during the act of confession, I mean, the church isn't going to rat on that guy at all. But a raffle that might have been rigged or tainted in some way, got to tell law enforcement about that. So the bishop informed local law enforcement, and they started an investigation. And check this out. The allegation and details of the investigation are included in a series of search warrants that detectives with the district attorney's office served on St. Jude's offices starting March 14th. They started doing this in March. One of the warrants states that in an interview with detectives on March 14th, Miss Selly admitted to publicly falsifying the results of the grand prize winner. So the priest openly admits, yeah, I made that guy's name up. This is months after that raffle took place. Amazing. And by the way, I think this is worth mentioning. Let me go back to that website for the raffle, because they say here's a picture of the 2022 winner and the 2023 winner. Where is the winner from 2024 that we now know is Martin Anderson? There's no picture of the dude. Why not? Because he doesn't exist. I'm on the website now. They've had 8 months to update it. They have not done that. Okay, so what the hell is going on? Let me go back to that article for a second. Here we go. Miss Selly, according to the affidavits, there's our buddy. He told the employee he made up the winner's name because there had been a problem with the raffle system, so the winning pick 4 number, 5851, didn't have anyone assigned to it. After the employee reported the admission to the detective, I believe, to the bishop, Bishop Persico confronted the priest about this allegation, and the priest admitted to fabricating the grand prize winner's name, but insisted the prize money was still in the account. Okay, so here's where we're at. It sounds like this priest had the winning lottery numbers, 5851, and he's like, oh no, according to my list, there is no one who bought that raffle ticket. And he could have just said out loud, hey guys, we didn't sell all 9,999 tickets. We undersold the tickets, too bad. And so no one won the grand prize. And he thought that would look really bad. That's going to make people not want to do this raffle in the future. So he just made up a name so that no one thought nobody won the grand prize. In his mind, this all made perfect sense. That's his best case scenario of what happened. And by the way, notice the name, Martin Anderson. Why did he pick that name? He apparently picked that name so that it would be as hard to Google as possible. He picked a big city, Detroit, Michigan, and then picked a relatively generic name that has a lot of nicknames, by the way, so no one could actually find this dude. And at that point, things looked bad. But like, at least he didn't steal the $50,000, right? Because that would be shady. That would be like different layers of shady. But it did not stop there. Because apparently, when Mylie was confessing to his minion at the church that, yeah, I totally made that guy's name up, he also said that there were multiple winners earlier in the week, like when they were winning $500 prizes. He said, yeah, a bunch of those people also, the winning lottery numbers did not correspond to a raffle ticket. So I had to make up something there too. But instead of making up a fake name, he said, and I'm quoting here, he picked the names of favored parishioners or family friends. So now he's not just making up a fake name, he's telling, like, he's literally putting the names of his own friends and family and saying they won, even though they did not win the raffle. So now it's no longer about saving face. Now he's purposely manipulating the results so that the raffle looks successful. I mean, if that's true, that would be a crime. And somehow all of this got worse. All of this got worse because this reporter, I want to give him credit, Ed Palatella of the Erie Times News, he kept reporting on this. I think he was like, this story is too much fun. This is all I'm reporting on for the next week. But check this out. He said in a subsequent article, payments the church made to cover American Express credit card bills exceeded a total of $300,000 between January of 2024 and March of 2025. The sole person in charge of the church's bank accounts, according to the warrants, was Mylie. In other words, while the worst thing we could have said a second ago is that, wow, this priest is, one, making up the name of a grand prize winner so that he could pretend the raffle was successful, but at least he didn't spend the money. And at least the money's in the account. But then he admitted, oh, wait, no, I did give some of the cash prizes to some of my buddies. Now it turns out he's using the church's credit card to make a lot of purchases, like purchases worth $300,000. If you gave me a credit card for a year and just said, spend it on whatever you want, but like, keep it on the DL, I don't think I could spend that much money if I tried. What the hell is this dude buying? And according to the same affidavits, this is unbelievable. What is this guy buying? The new warrants show that the employee, because Mylie bragged about all this to his minion, told the detectives on February 26th that Father Ross had recently purchased a new Tesla, owns numerous high-value personal items, including designer clothes, sneakers, electronics, and collectibles, and frequently travels domestically and abroad. Oh my God. What? First of all, why are you buying designer clothes when the only thing I've ever seen you in is like a one-piece black suit with the white thing collar? You don't need designer clothes. You wear one suit for life. I say this as someone who wears the same damn thing every day. I don't need more than like 2 pairs of clothes. Sneakers too? Why? What are you doing? Anyway, all of these behaviors appear inconsistent with his reported modest income and living expenses, which are largely covered by the church. So this dude, who's not making much money, and I'll be honest, priests do not make a lot of money, but they get a lot of their stuff covered by the church, so that kind of balances some stuff out. This guy is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on the church's dime. That's not even connected to the raffle per se, but it means this guy has a very loose relationship with money. It is incredible. And by the way, that same article pointed out that when detectives searched his office, which they were able to do because they got a warrant to search his office because there's a lot of evidence that he's doing some shady stuff, they also found 3 high-end resort cards and membership cards for 12 different casinos. And in case you're thinking, wait a minute, thou shalt not lie is a commandment. Isn't this man lying? Yes. Wait a minute. He's going to the casinos? Shouldn't he not be gambling? Isn't there something in the Bible about, greed? That he shouldn't be doing that? Yes. But what have we learned throughout all of tonight? It's that hypocrisy doesn't work on people who have no shame. All right, so where do we go with this? All of this is happening while Mylie is in the middle of what was supposed to be a 6-year stint as like the guy running St. Jude the Apostle Church. He got hired in 2022. He was supposed to be there till 2028. And he actually recently announced to his church that he was moving elsewhere in the diocese. He actually announced his resignation a couple of weeks ago, and it was a pretty quiet thing, but he said in the video, I'll just read it to you here. After prayerful discernment, I have decided to submit my resignation as pastor of St. Jude the Apostle Parish, ... And the bishop has accepted my resignation. And I have been assigned to serve as sacramental minister at 2 other smaller churches. Okay, I mean, I guess that happens all the time, but he didn't mention the investigation. He didn't mention his spending habits because none of that had been made public yet, even though his employee knew about it and the bishop definitely knew about it. And so as of right now, as I'm making this video, no charges have been filed against the priest. Nothing's happened yet. But last week, the diocese announced, hey, you know how we said we're moving this guy to a smaller church or 2 smaller churches? That's not happening anymore. The bishop said Mylie is placed on administrative leave until the investigation is over, which is fine. That's good. He should be. The search warrants that the detectives used, they point to 3 possible crimes they were investigating: rigging a public contest, tampering with records, and theft. And now it's the ball's in the district attorney's court to decide whether or not they should press charges against this priest. But I will say, based on the information so far, it is possible that the biggest problem we've had is not that this guy made up winners in a raffle or gave money to his friends. It's that by doing that, it exposed him to more scrutiny, and that scrutiny uncovered that this guy may be stealing money from the church. Yikes. It would be incredible, though, that let's say this dude is guilty of everything and he is charged with crimes. This would still be one of the least awful things a Pennsylvania priest has ever done. And I know that because years ago in Pennsylvania, thanks to then Attorney General Josh Shapiro, they did a grand jury investigation into the Catholic Church, and they released a grand jury report that had the vilest crimes depicted in there, because these are things priests in Pennsylvania diocese had done over the past several decades. It was horrifying stuff. So like what this guy is doing in this church, small potatoes. I'll just leave you with this. The reporter who covered all of this stuff for the Erie Times News, he made one other discovery, which is that earlier this month, like early August, Mylie delivered a sermon. Guess what the topic was? Don't be greedy. Greed is bad. He seriously preached against that like 2 weeks ago. Beautiful. Just chef's kiss all around. Thought you would enjoy that story. What questions we got here? Father Ross dress for less. Yes, exactly. Why does he need designer clothes? I still don't get it. Where is he going at night that he needs to impress people with his designer jeans? I don't know. I don't go out of my house, so I don't understand. Oh, thank you for that donation. Thank you for illuminating many of us on a daily basis. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Akiva. Thank you. Dan says, but I'm sure they get to keep their nonprofit status despite basically running a casino now. And if they're not running a casino, I just talked to Mylie. He knows where all the good casinos are. Yeah, I will give the church credit for at least like everyone except for Father Ross seems to have done exactly what they were supposed to do. The minion told the bishop worked with law enforcement. Everyone seems to be working with law enforcement officials I haven't read anything yet that suggests the church is trying to hide anything. So good on that. That's exactly what should happen. I will say I don't understand why they refuse to do that when it involves a predator confessing to a crime in the confession booth. But I guess I'm glad they're going out of their way to go after the criminal here. I guess they need a bigger 10 Commandments monument in their church. Thou shalt not lie. There you go. Yep. Maybe if they had a 10 Commandments monument in their church, they would learn something, because that's the argument they always make about why they should be in public schools. Seriously, I'm much more concerned about where the Corvettes are coming from. I was wondering this. I don't think they're donated. I think the church is just buying them for the raffle, because again, if they are selling $500,000 worth of tickets, I'm sure they would be willing to spend $100,000 for these big prizes to cover those costs. I mean, it would add up in that sense. And that would be financially smart if you are selling all those raffle tickets. Now, if you're not selling all the raffle tickets, there will be problems. What was the raffle money supposed to go for? I mean, they were raising money for something. What was it for? If I go back to the website for the raffle, let me see if it says it on there really quick. Yeah. Here's what they say on their website, and it's right above my head here. Thanks to your generosity, we are able to feed and shelter the homeless, provide quality religious education to children. No one needs that. Teens and adults. Enhance our liturgies and parish school campus to be a welcoming place of belonging. I mean, I appreciate that they're trying to feed and shelter the homeless. The rest of it, I could care less about. But I mean, again, this is a church raffle, so the money is going to the church. That's fine. I'm not bothered by that. They're very open about what the money's going for. Any other questions here? Oh, so the guy managing the gambling at church is the one with the gambling issue? I never saw that one coming. Why do you, as I enjoy poker and stuff like that, blackjack, sure. Why do you need tickets? Why do you need membership cards to 12 casinos? Like, unless you are pulling a heist, who is going to Las Vegas and like hopping from casino to casino? I don't know. I've been to Vegas a few times. I just stay at the one, and then I might do something there. Maybe. I don't even do that. I'll spend like $40 playing blackjack, and then when that's done, I leave. And I'm mad. I don't get it. All right, I'll move on to a real story now. One moment here. All right. I can't believe we are still talking about this person, but guess who's in the news again now? It's Kim Davis. You thought we were done with her a decade ago. No, she's still around. Kim Davis, of course, is the infamous Kentucky Rowan County clerk. Her one job 10 years ago is you got to sign the marriage licenses when they come in the office. And then in 2015, a gay couple said, hey, Obergefell says marriage equality is legal nationwide, and we would like to get our marriage license in this county in Kentucky. Please sign our papers. And Kim Davis is like, no, because I'm Christian. And the right answer to that is, nobody cares. You have a job to do. You're the county clerk. Sign my papers. And she's like, I will not. Why are you persecuting me? Anyway, that's the Kim Davis story from like 10 years ago. And one of the gay couples sued her over this, and she lost. And a jury said she had to pay them $100,000, and they appealed it. And then she had to pay over $250,000 in legal fees. Like, it's just been a debacle for Kim Davis, because every judge who comes across this case is like, you are the county clerk. You don't get to decide which laws you're going to follow. You just have to sign the marriage certificate. And she refused to do it. And Liberty Counsel is the right-wing hate group that is representing her. And I think 10 years ago, they're like, we can make money off of this. So they said, hey, Kim Davis, we'll take care of all your legal defense. And then we're going to fundraise like hell off of it. And then they lose and they lose and they lose. And Kim Davis is the one on the hook for paying whatever, like $360,000 right now, because Liberty Counsel is not paying for that. But every time Liberty Counsel is like, wait, we're not done yet. We're going to keep appealing. And what happened recently, and the reason you might have seen Kim Davis in the news, is because a few weeks ago, Liberty Counsel on Kim Davis's behalf said, hey, Supreme Court, we want you to take a look at this case and we want you to overturn the earlier decisions. Oh, and by the way, while you're at it, we want you to overturn Obergefell as well and basically erase marriage equality nationwide. You already did it with Roe v. Wade. You overturned that. Now do it with marriage equality. And that's disturbing. But that's what they're doing here. And I think to talk about this, there's a couple things you really need to know if you were lucky enough to not remember who Kim Davis was. If you forgot she existed, let me remind you of the inherent hypocrisy in the life of Kim Davis, because today's episode is all about Christian hypocrisy, all right? Kim Davis's entire adult life right now is opposing same-sex marriage because it destroys the sanctity of marriage, which is something she, as a conservative Christian, holds very dear. Now, how important is marriage to her? So important, she's done it over and over and over. Let me read this for you. In chronological order, here is what she did. See if you can keep track. She married husband 1. She had twins with future husband 3. She divorced husband 1. She married husband 2. She divorced husband 2. Then she married husband 3. Then she divorced husband 3, the baby daddy. Then she remarried husband 2. And that's where we are today. That's Kim Davis's life, just like Jesus wanted. And years ago, she came out with a book. It was a memoir. It was published by Liberty Counsel. Again, just trying to make money off of this woman. And I read it because I hate myself. And she explained, like, people make fun of me because of all of my marriages. However, the thing they don't understand, she said, is that God wasn't in the picture until husband 2's mother died. And so they went back to church in 2011. And that's when she became born again. So basically, all those marriages don't count because only the marriage she's in right now happened while she's a Christian. So stop making fun of her, everybody. And then she was trying to, she knew that wouldn't work. So she said, I find the whole thing to be an example of divine irony. Basically, she said, haha, God took a woman who's been married 4 times and he's using her to defend marriage against the gays. Isn't that so mysterious of God? No, you're just a hypocrite. But anyway, her legal history, like I said, is she refused to sign a marriage license for a gay couple, for a couple of them, but she refused to do it in 2015. They sued. And in 2022, so it took a while. In 2022, a federal judge said, you broke the law when you did this. You're a government worker, and your personal beliefs cannot override the law you swore to uphold. So you lost. And in 2023, a jury heard this case to assess damages, and they didn't buy anything she was saying. So they said to the 2 gay men whose marriage license you would not sign, we award them $50,000 each. So that's where the $100,000 fine came from. Liberty Counsel said she had qualified immunity. You cannot sue her for being Kentucky County Clerk. And the jury was like, yeah, but we are not convinced by that argument either. And so Liberty Counsel keeps appealing this decision and they keep losing. And like I said, Kim Davis now owes over $250,000 plus the $100,000 fee. It's crazy. Now, Liberty Counsel has been saying for years now, we're going to keep appealing this to the Supreme Court. We got nothing better to do in our lives, so we're going to keep doing it. We don't care. It's been a decade. And my initial hunch is the only reason they're doing this is because Liberty Counsel wants to prolong the Kim Davis story as long as possible because they just send scary emails to their gullible elderly followers saying, Kim Davis is going to go to jail soon. You don't want that to happen, do you? Give us money so that we can defend her in court. They've been sending a version of that email for 10 years now. And I'm sure they make money off of that thing. So on July 24th, Liberty Counsel filed their case, their petition with the Supreme Court. And here's the thing. Anybody can ask the Supreme Court to take up their case. Anybody can do it. It's like applying to an Ivy League school. Anybody can apply. The question is, who is the school actually going to take? What cases is the Supreme Court actually going to take up? And the fact is, the Supreme Court says no to pretty much every request. Why would they say yes? Because it's a very pertinent issue that they feel they need to take a stance on right away. Maybe two lower courts have had different opinions on the same thing, and the Supreme Court needs to step in to resolve it. That's a reason for the Supreme Court to step in. Or it could be like abortion rights, and they're like, yeah, we just want this because it allows us to hurt the people we don't like. That's another reason. And this one would squarely fall in the, do we hate gay people enough that we want to destroy their lives? And the thing is, I don't even know if this Supreme Court cares about that much. But we'll find out. I mean, they will make their decision on this in the next couple of months. So what is Liberty Counsel asking for? Well, one thing they're saying is Kim Davis has a First Amendment right to the free exercise of religion. You can't force her to sign this marriage license because that's violating her religious beliefs. And that argument has not worked for them. And I'll show you this. This is from one of the appellate courts when they heard this argument. This is what the judges said. Indeed, it is not difficult to imagine the dire possibilities that might follow if Kim Davis's arguments were accepted. A county clerk who finds interracial marriage sinful could refuse to issue licenses to interracial couples. An election official who believes women should not vote, hey, Doug Wilson reference, could refuse to count ballots cast by females. A zoning official personally opposed to Christianity could refuse to permit the construction of a church. All these officials would have wielded state power to violate constitutional rights, but they would have followed their conscience, which Davis believes provides a defense to liability. That is not how the Constitution works, which is really a judicial way of saying, what the hell are you wasting our time for? Your argument is dumb, and you are dumb. So then, Liberty Counsel finally says the thing they are dying to say. Look at this. This is in Liberty Counsel's request to the Supreme Court. Davis may have been one of the first victims of this court's cavalier treatment of religion in its Obergefell decision, but she will not be the last. You guys, the Supreme Court decision to legalize marriage equality, it has ruined her life. She cannot focus on her fourth marriage because she's trying to stop gay people from having their first marriage. How dare you? This flawed opinion has produced disastrous results, leaving individuals like Davis finding it increasingly difficult to participate in society without running afoul of Obergefell and its effect on other anti-discrimination laws. This is seriously the dumb argument they are using for why the Supreme Court needs to get rid of Obergefell. Kim Davis cannot participate in polite society. She cannot participate in... What is she doing with her life that gay people getting married ruins her life? Like, what, is she not getting invited to all the same-sex weddings? Because she wasn't going to get invited to them in the first place. What, is she having a hard time finding husbands 5 through 8? I don't get it. Like, if I'm being more serious about this, Liberty Counsel is saying, hey, look, Roe v. Wade looked like it was settled law, but it used a flimsy argument, and the Supreme Court can overturn that flimsy argument, and they did. And that's why abortion rights are like left up to the states now. What Liberty Counsel is saying is marriage equality. The Obergefell decision was rooted in the 14th Amendment, but like the Constitution did not guarantee a right to marry in the 14th Amendment, and it's not historical. The Supreme Court now loves anything based in history. They said marriage equality is not historical, and so if you overturn Roe v. Wade, you can overturn Obergefell. Liberty Counsel also says that if you did overturn Obergefell, all these liberals are going to be mad. They're going to say you're going to like break up gay couples who are already married. Liberty Counsel says that's not going to happen. It would just return the definition of marriage to the states where it belongs, and it would only apply to gay couples trying to get married moving forward. So if you're a gay couple in a red state, and that state says, all right, we're one man, one woman, you have to be Christian, you have to be white, and you can only be like first cousins. It's Alabama. That's what we do here. Like, if they want to do that, it would only apply moving forward. But you know why that's going to be the case? You know why they're right that it would not affect gay couples who are already married? Because in 2022, Joe Biden signed the Respect for Marriage Act that solidified gay marriage. Like, they can't overturn it. It's now a legislative thing that marriage equality is legal nationwide. And it was such a controversial thing at the time that even Republicans who really dislike the gays are like, shit, I gotta vote for this, don't I? Otherwise, it's going to hound me forever. So it didn't even matter that Democrats did not have a filibuster-proof majority. The Respect for Marriage Act passed through Congress. Joe Biden signed it in 2022. And now Liberty Counsel's like, look, we're being nice here. We're not trying to break up gay couples. Like, they would have, but they can't because Democrats did something. Now, why is this actually going to happen? I mean, that's the question we really got to think about. And according to ABC News, the only reason this is a big story at all, and this is relevant, the petition from Liberty Counsel appears to mark the first time since 2015 that the court has been formally asked to overturn the landmark marriage decision. Davis is seen as one of the only Americans currently with legal standing to bring a challenge to the precedent, which is interesting because, like, there are plenty of Christians who oppose marriage equality, but just being offended by it doesn't mean you get to sue over it. Kim Davis might have a legitimate claim to at least make the request to overturn it because she got fired. She had to resign because she wouldn't support marriage equality. So that's interesting. But it doesn't really matter that she's able to do it because, again, legally speaking, it's unlikely that they're going to use Kim Davis as their vehicle to overturn marriage equality. The Supreme Court has to know, despite their 6-3 conservative supermajority, they have to know if you do this, one, people are going to be pissed off, just like they were pissed off with Roe v. Wade. But also, this is not, unlike abortion, this is not a thing that gets massive support from conservative Christians. Like, even a lot of Christians are like, we don't care if gay people are allowed to get married. Like, some people definitely are, but by and large, even among Christians, they're not really bothered by marriage equality. The sky did not fall when gay couples were allowed to marry. So, legally speaking, there's no good reason for the Supreme Court to take this up. It was unlikely they would have taken it up at all. The fact that there's no the fact that there's no judicial controversy over this in the lower courts makes it harder for them to rationalize taking it up. I don't know. I will say in 2020, the court was asked by Kim Davis to take up a different type of case against her, and they said no. But Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito, they said, look, we agree we are not going to hear Kim Davis's case. But they said this in their explanation. Those with sincerely held religious beliefs concerning marriage will find it increasingly difficult to participate in society without running afoul of Obergefell and its effect on other anti-discrimination laws. And what did Liberty Counsel say in their request to the Supreme Court now? Kim Davis cannot participate in society because she is running afoul of Obergefell. Like, they quoted what Clarence Thomas said directly. really saying like, come on, justices, you asked for this. We're giving it to you. Take it up, overturn it. What you should know is, according to Lambda Legal, 9 states have already introduced legislation to block marriage licenses for LGBTQ people, but it doesn't matter because marriage equality exists. 9 states have also passed resolutions urging the Supreme Court to reverse Obergefell because they want to see this happen. And you may recall that the Southern Baptist Convention held their annual convention like a couple of months ago. One of the things they voted on, their delegates voted on, was to make a top priority of overturning laws and court rulings, including Obergefell, that defy God's design for marriage and family. So, like, Southern Baptists really want this to happen. But these people who love to pretend to be victims, they really think their religion gives them the right to break the law and discriminate and then pretend they are martyrs. You know, the funny thing about this is that Kim Davis always had one very simple option available to her. If she didn't want to sign those marriage licenses, she just could have resigned right then and there. Because imagine if she did that. If she said, the state's making me sign this document, I don't want to do it, so I'm resigning, she would have been a Christian hero. But instead, she said, I'm not resigning, but I'm not signing your certificate. And because she chose that route, she became the government employee who couldn't do her job. And now she's a laughing stock for the nation, just a symbol of Christian selfishness and Christian cruelty. And she has these idiot lawyers who repeatedly make mistakes in her case, but they've made so much money off of her that they're not going to stop doing it now. I think there's one thing I wanted to show you. This is an actual email that I got from Liberty Counsel, because I'm on their mailing list because I hate myself. Look at how they're spinning this. Liberty Counsel has been preparing this Supreme Court case for 10 long years. Sadly, it often takes a decade and millions of dollars for cases to make their way through the lower courts to finally achieve justice at the highest court in the land. Liberty Counsel never charges our clients because we know that most people could never afford to fight these battles on their own. Right, but if Liberty Counsel loses, Kim Davis has to pay all this shit. But just as importantly, freedom is worth defending no matter the cost. If we do not win this case, Kim Davis will face bankruptcy, and Christians will become easy targets for persecution by the intolerant LGBTQ crowd. Defend Kim Davis with your gift today. Like, oh my God, Kim Davis could have avoided bankruptcy if she did her job, if she stopped trying to fight this. And also, how are Christians getting persecuted for marriage equality? They're not. This is all made up, but they're sending this to like their entire mailing list full of old grannies who are Christian and who live in fear, and also me because I don't know why I'm on their mailing list. Ridiculous. Like nothing like raising money from those people by trying to take away the civil rights of others. Look, I know I'm not a lawyer. I don't think the Supreme Court is going to take up this case. If they do, though, the results could be very, very catastrophic. Not just for LGBTQ rights, but for the simple idea that Americans are equal under the law. Like, her case is not about religious freedom. It's about giving government officials permission to discriminate. And I don't know. I don't want to turn personal prejudices into federal policy. Kim Davis does not want the freedom to practice her faith because she already has that ability. She is asking for legal authority to weaponize her faith against people she doesn't like. And if she wins, conservatives will gut LGBTQ protections everywhere. And even if current same-sex marriages remain intact, the message is clear. Your rights are temporary, and we could take them away at any time, and it all matters on the crazy religious extremist whims of whoever happens to be in power. So, scary stuff. But again, I don't think it's going to happen. Knock on wood. We'll see. Okay, what questions we got here? Serial monogamy. We're not talking about Kim Davis. I don't know who we're talking about anymore. Shouldn't Christians try to outlaw divorce amongst themselves before they come after what other people do with their lives? First of all, conservative Christians absolutely want to eliminate no-fault divorce across the country. If they could do that, they absolutely would. But to your point, like, shouldn't they take care of this shit amongst themselves? It never works for anything. They get abortions. They have abuse, physical, spiritual, mental abuse in their churches. They always have solutions for what the rest of us should do. Meanwhile, they always have the same problems in their churches, and they never want to take care of their own house first. They always get people riled up by saying, let's fix the outside world because we are all perfect in here. Sure, we're like sinners, so we're imperfect, but like we're perfect. But everyone else needs help. So they would absolutely outlaw no-fault divorce. And listen, there are plenty of extremist Christians who would say, no, you just can't get divorced. If your husband is abusing you, so what? It's probably your fault. Deal with it. You can't leave. You made a commitment to God. Even if SCOTUS were to overturn Obergefell, the law at the time is what is applicable. Right. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you're saying at the very end there. Ex post facto law is not a thing. But yeah, it would go to the states. They can't undo the marriages that happened in that time. But also, even if they found a way to try to go backtrack and undo it, like the legislative version of this in 2022 doesn't allow them to do it. But still, it would, I mean, gay people wouldn't be allowed to get married in a lot of states moving forward if they were to overturn Obergefell. Because those legislatures, the right-wing legislatures, are never going to allow that to happen. They're demonizing trans folks so much, and they actually have some gays on their side. They do that, they lose that support. Better to keep the trans boogeymen their focus. That's an interesting take on this. How many gay Republicans are there really, percentage-wise? Like, it can't be big. So I don't really think they're worried about losing the support of the 3 gay people who happen to be Republicans. I get what your point is, but I just don't think they get worked up about same-sex marriage today the way they used to in like 2004. Whereas abortion is the thing that riles up these people because they have no empathy for other people. I'm working on Graves Worth Pissing On. Hers will be in it at some reprinting. That sounds like a book. That seems very interesting. What do you do in that book? Just show pictures of tombstones? I'm very curious. All right. I'm moving on to another story. Give me a moment here. Oh, okay. Let's talk about this as soon as I close some tabs. I got 2 more stories for you, then I'll call it a night. Okay. Let's talk about this nonprofit group. It's called World Vision. And this is a Christian ministry. And you could see this on the website. Together, we can build a brighter future. Their whole Christian ministry's mission is helping people get out of poverty, which is a wonderful mission. Like, good for them for doing that. So you could sponsor a child, disaster relief, they clean water, food and health. Like, that's fine. I don't like the religious strings attached to a lot of this stuff, but in general, okay, like, that seems like a worthy cause in general. And the reason I bring them up is because in 2020, in the heart of the pandemic, vaccines were not available, and a woman named Aubrey McMahon saw a job listing to work for World Vision. I think she saw it on like Indeed.com or something. She saw a job listing and she said, that sounds like a job I could totally do. And the description for the job said she could work from home. She would be like a customer service rep, which we will call CSR, customer service rep. So she would be a CSR who could work from home. She would talk to potential donors who called the ministry. She had all the qualifications. She did not mind that the job description said you would have to attend devotions and weekly chapel services, even if it's remote. And she might have to lead like prayer in some of these small groups or something like that. She said, yeah, that's fine, whatever. I'll join your Zoom call. I will do the prayers. And that's not hard for her to say because she is a Christian. She said that in her interviews, and she ended up getting this job in January of 2021. So great. That sounds like no big deal. Now, the reason she wanted this job and the reason she wanted a remote job at the time is because she just had a baby. And that's why she wanted some remote work. But actually, when she was hired, I should say, she did not have the baby. She was pregnant. She was about to have the baby. But let me show you this. This is from a lawsuit. I want you to look at line 12. Here we go at the very top. Curious about whether she would be eligible for any maternity leave in March 2021, when she was due to give birth, Aubrey McMahon replied to the person for the ministry via email that same day she got the job and wrote, "My wife and I are expecting our first baby in March, and I wanted to see if I would qualify for any time off for this since I will be a new employee. I will be the one having the baby, so I just wanted to check to see if any time would be allowed off. If not, no worries. Thanks so much." You see where we're going with this. So she is in a same-sex relationship. They got pregnant. She got pregnant via a sperm donor, and she was the one carrying the baby. And she wanted to know from this Christian ministry, hey, I know you just hired me, but I'm about to have a baby. Do I get time off or do you need me to work? Because if you need me to work, I will work, but I figured I would just ask. And within a couple of days, I think within 2 days, World Vision wrote back and say, what job? You don't have a job with us anymore. So they rescinded the job offer. Apparently, World Vision has this very, very strict rule that you're not allowed to help the poor and oppressed if you're gay and not ashamed of it. At least you can't work with them. So they took away her job offer. Aubrey McMahon, ended up suing World Vision, saying they violated her civil rights. And basically, long story short, a judge later said, yeah, you're a customer service rep. Your job is answering phone calls and entering data. Most of the work you do is administrative, not ministerial. And here's what that judge meant by that. World Vision is a Christian ministry. They have a right to say, we are trying to, even though as a nonprofit and all that, we can limit our hiring to people who share our religious beliefs. And basically what the Supreme Court has said is we're fine with that, but that only applies to people who are promoting your religion as part of the job description. So if you're a Catholic school and you have an English teacher and you find out that English teacher is in a same-sex relationship, I mean, we have seen these stories for years now, the Catholic Church could say, yeah, you can't work for us anymore, you're fired. It's not that you did anything wrong, like with students or anything. It's that you're in a gay marriage and the Catholic Church opposes marriage equality. And so you violated our rules, so we can get rid of you. And the Supreme Court has said churches are allowed to do that. You can totally fire people for that reason, because the church could argue that a teacher is in the job of spreading the religion to the kids. And therefore, they are basically a pastor, a minister by another name. Okay, so what the judge said to Aubrey McMahon is, you're doing clerical work. You're typing in stuff. You're talking on the phone. The stuff you are doing is not ministerial. It's administrative. So they cannot fire you because you don't live up to their religious code. They are violating anti-discrimination laws. So that's what the judge said. Then World Vision appealed that decision, and very recently, like a couple of weeks ago, a ruling finally came down from the Ninth Circuit. All 3 judges were appointed by Democrats, and they were all unanimous. And what they said is that World Vision's customer service reps count as ministers. And so they have every legal right to fire her because she didn't match their religious convictions. And this is what they ended up saying in their decision. Let me make sure I can pull this up here. Yeah. Here's their decision from the Ninth Circuit. We respectfully disagree with the district court's conclusion. When viewing customer service reps' religious functions within the context of World Vision's mission, we hold that World Vision's CSRs qualify for the ministerial exception, meaning that they are ministers, because they perform vital religious duties at the heart of World Vision's mission. Like, how does that make any sense? What are they doing that is religious? Here's what the decision went on to say. Those responsibilities, I'm sorry, let me make sure. CSRs also perform vital religious duties crucial to World Vision's mission by explaining their ministry programs and by giving people an opportunity to join World Vision in the mission of God through donations and sponsorships. Like, this is what World Vision argued. They basically said, when you call our organization, the first people you talk to are these customer service reps. They are the vehicles through which donors get in touch with our ministry, and we need them to be promoters of our vision. So, if a donor calls and says they're thinking about giving us money, you might have to talk religion with the person giving us a call. So that makes you a minister. And just because you're typing stuff into a computer, just because really you're just soliciting donations, that still counts as a minister. And the court's saying, yeah, we agree with that. The court added, it doesn't matter that most of the shit you got to do is overwhelmingly secular. And there are some religious aspects like prayer meetings that apply to everybody. None of that matters. They still said the work you got to do is religious in nature. Now, this is amazing. The same court said this doesn't apply to everybody. Look at this at the very top here. Secretaries, accountants, and custodians at World Vision, despite having the same religious obligations to attend chapel and bear witness to Jesus Christ, would not qualify for the ministerial exception because, unlike customer service reps, they are not charged with conveying the organization's message to its donors. So custodians and secretaries, you cannot fire them for being in a same-sex marriage. But the customer service reps, you could. That's how the Ninth Circuit rationalized this. But you can see where this could be a real problem. Before they decided this case, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, they actually filed an amicus brief where they said, hey, please don't do this. You are making a really big mistake if you do this. And look at what the church-state separation group said. Under World Vision's view, religious entities could opt out of neutral and generally applicable employment non-discrimination requirements simply by stating a religious justification for their actions. And think about that for a second. What they're saying is, even though the Ninth Circuit said, custodians don't count for this, secretaries don't count for this, what if World Vision said, if someone came to our headquarters and they saw that this ministry's building is clean, that emphasizes our connection to Christ. We want to keep a clean facility because this is a place that honors God. And our custodians are the people who help us achieve that vision. So really, custodians are helping us achieve this religious mission. So yeah, custodians also have to live up to our religious ideals. What's stopping them from saying that? Like, that's what Americans United was saying. And what they said in their amicus brief here, check this out. If endorsed, there we go. If endorsed by the courts, this kind of gamesmanship could leave millions of workers without basic legal protections at work. Consider receptionists, helpline employees, and call center workers, all individuals in customer service positions with public-facing jobs that may be directed to communicate the religious mission of their employer to callers. If World Vision had its way, these employees would no longer receive protection from discriminatory hiring and firing decisions by simply requiring them all to attend chapel lead team devotionals, or answer questions about the organization on the phone, religious employers could defeat employment discrimination claims. Yeah, that's the worry. And the Ninth Circuit said, we don't care. Customer service reps count as ministers. So there you go. They ignored it. And what this means right now is that religious organizations now have this deeply powerful loophole that they can exploit to circumvent laws that they don't like. All they have to do is say, oh, this random person who works for us in a low-level position, they're vital to our religious mission because of something we said in fine print in the job contract. So we can fire them even for things that other companies cannot do because of anti-discrimination laws. And that's disturbing. All you have to do is rewrite job descriptions with some holy language, and workers no longer have civil rights protections. That's scary. That's not religious freedom. That is a license to discriminate that is camouflaged by scripture. And by the way, some of you may remember World Vision because they were in the news about 10 years ago. And it's an amazing thing because it's almost the same type of story. In 2014, the United States branch of World Vision, because it's a global organization, but World Vision US said basically, hey, we need workers. So guess what? If you're Christian, but you're in a same-sex marriage, we're still willing to hire you. So please apply for a job. And they said that. And within a day or two, there was so much backlash from conservative Christians who are like, what the hell are you people doing? How dare you allow gay people? How dare you treat gay couples like their marriage counts after Obergefell? I think that was before Obergefell, actually. But how dare you treat gay Christians like their marriages count? They were so mad about it that within 2 days, this is a headline from Christianity Today, World Vision reverses decision to hire Christians in same-sex marriages. They did the Uno reverse on it, and they said, okay, I guess we're not doing that anymore because we heard you loud and clear. Can't have donors running around thinking we're tolerant, can we? So what happens now? Is Aubrey McMahon gonna appeal this decision? I doubt it. I mean, she's not going to get a sympathetic ear with the US Supreme Court, right? So right now, the law leaves millions of Americans who work for religious organizations or religious owners, they're vulnerable to bigotry in the workplace, at least if they have this like religious employer. Like today, it's customer service reps. Tomorrow, it could be receptionists, IT workers, cafeteria workers. Like this is devastating. Civil rights protections can now be dissolved, and all you need is the stroke of an HR pen in the name of religion. Like, I don't even know why they call it a ministerial exception anymore because they're treating it like it's a rule. And that's what all these ministries are going to start doing. All right, what questions we got here before I move on? It's like they have permission to legally discriminate. Yeah, sad. I mean, they now know exactly what they got to do if they want to be able to get rid of certain employees who happen to be gay. All they got to do is put that fine print in. A gay person can still proselytize. You all get it. I mean, yeah, a gay person could proselytize. Like I said, Aubrey McMahon, and I don't know if this is what you were getting at, but the person we're talking about here is Christian. She believes this stuff, and she happens to be in a same-sex marriage, and she doesn't see those as contradictory, which is also true for a lot of Christians. So she had no problem pushing World Vision as a ministry and telling people to donate to it. But because she has gay cooties, they're like, no, you cannot work for us. They might catch your gay cooties over the phone. Can't have that happening. Quick PSA tangentially related to this story. A positive pregnancy test in a two cis lady relationship doesn't necessarily mean someone cheated. It could also be the result of cancer. What? I did not know that. I don't have anything to add here because I don't know anything about that. But whoa, that's surprising to me. I want to know more about that. Why would that result in a positive pregnancy test? Carry on. All right. I got one last story for you, and this is maybe the most disturbing of them all. So I figured I would just save it for last and leave you all on a sad note. Okay. Give me 1 second to close up some tabs. All right. I warned you this one is sad. There's your warning. Let me show you a picture of the subject of our story here. This is Haley Swinson. And Haley, in 2008, she began attending a Baptist college in Georgia called Truett McConnell University. It's a small Baptist school, and she didn't really care about religion. I think she was a little religious, maybe. She didn't really care. Definitely not a fundy. But she went there because they gave her a soccer scholarship. And I've heard this from many, many people where they're like, listen, I don't care if I go to Liberty University. If they're giving me an athletic scholarship, who cares what the school's about? I'll go and get that education for free, and I get to play the sport I want to play. Like, who cares what type of college it is? So, whatever, I get why she would do that. So she attended the school on a girls' soccer scholarship. And I'm sure she didn't really care that part of the school's thing is everyone has to attend chapel once a week. Like, whatever. It seemed worth it for the opportunity. And after her first year at the school, I guess all of that chapel going and being surrounded by religious people, it had an effect on her. And she decided to give her life to Jesus. So, like, if she wasn't a Christian before, she was definitely a Christian by year 2. Okay. Now, I got to show you one other guy. This dude right here, his name is Bradley Reynolds, and he's a pastor from North Carolina. And he was then, around the second year Haley was at the school, this guy got hired as Truett McConnell University's vice president because he happened to know Amir Kaner, who is the guy who is now running the school. So the guy running the school is like, oh, I need a vice president. I know who I can call up. Bradley Reynolds, that guy, I like him. I'm bringing him over here. Okay, so that's how those two ended up on the same campus. And their paths crossed pretty quickly in Haley's second year at the school because it's a small school. Everyone kind of knows each other. And according to what I've read, professors at this school, they routinely say, oh, I have a place on campus. Hey, kids, if you guys want to come over, I say kids, they're adults. Come over, I'll make you a homemade meal. My family will make you something. It's a close-knit community. That's not weird either at a school like this. And so Bradley Reynolds and his wife would invite the soccer team over to their house for dinner, followed by Bible study. Okay. And he soon realized, oh, Haley is a brand new Christian. She doesn't really know a lot of the stuff that some of these other women know. I will be a mentor to her personally. Take her on as a little project. And they began holding Bible study sessions in his basement after dinner. And the answer to your thought right now is, yeah, that's where this is going. So Haley, she graduated, I will say. Like, nothing happened in college. They had their Bible studies in college, whatever. She graduates, but she can't really, I don't know, maybe she couldn't find a job. She wasn't sure what she wanted to do. So she stuck around campus. She started helping out with the soccer team, even though she was no longer playing on it. She did a bunch of other jobs on campus, around campus. And eventually, Bradley Reynolds says, you know what I can do for you? I'm going to create a position just for you. We will call it life coach. You're helping out with the soccer team. You're also mentoring them. You're the life coach. And now I have a reason for you to stick around on campus. And then they continued meeting one-on-one for their Bible studies. And then those studies got a lot scarier. The reason I know all this stuff is because the Atlanta Journal-Constitution just published a very long story about all of this. There's Haley right there. I just want to show you this. This is by Tad Moore and Allie Gross. And ignore that byline at the bottom, but Tad Moore and Allie Gross wrote this article. It was published like last week. But what they do is they kind of go through the timeline from when Haley began going to this college to after she graduated and long beyond that. But here's what they basically say. And they're basing this information not just off of something Haley said, but they got access to hundreds of emails that Bradley Reynolds sent to Haley, thousands of text messages between them, and taped interviews that later happened with law enforcement. So what do they find after all this? Here's one example of what happened, and this is now in 2014. Check this out. Swinson told the police, that's Sims. Haley Swinson told the cop that she couldn't remember when their Bible studies turned sexual. But as they prayed during their sessions, she recalled, Reynolds began touching her, putting a hand on her back, then her knee, and her chest, and eventually reaching into her shorts. If I scroll down for a second here, as Reynolds prayed, she recalled, he would say things like, you don't understand. You're not going to understand. You're a baby believer. This is from God. She didn't want to be touched that way, she told the detective. Or the cop, I don't remember what he was. But she was still learning who God was, and Reynolds insisted it was okay because she was his betrothed. And it was God's will that one day they would marry. He is telling her they're going to get married, therefore, everything he does to her is okay. And I should tell you at this point, Bradley Reynolds was married, by the way, to someone he met when he was her youth pastor. I said that correctly. Yeah, it's disturbing. Anyway, he was married, but apparently he told Haley that, don't worry, God told me my wife is going to die soon. And then you're going to take her place. And that's why I can have you. I'm not joking when I say that. This is what he told her. Check this out. He asserted that while they weren't married, God had given them freedoms to have sex. It was okay, she recalled him saying, because he had made a vow of betrothal before God. She hadn't understood what he meant, she said, and she hadn't wanted a physical relationship. So this dude is just grooming her. I know she's an adult at this point, but she trusts him as a spiritual guide, and he knows that, and he's taking advantage of her. One of the things that came up in the reporting about this story, like I said, there were lots of emails. I want to show you one of them, and I'm showing it to you because when I read it, I was, as someone who doesn't get disturbed by anything, I read this email, I'm like, oh, that's disturbing. And then I thought, well, then I have to share it with you, and let's read it together, shall we? The date on this from Bradley Reynolds to Haley is May 13th, 2015. Let's read it together. Hey, I wanted to keep being totally transparent with you, and yet, please, let's keep close. I don't ever want to be so transparent it pushes you away, but I do want to be totally transparent. I can't help my dreams, so I've had 2 in the past week. I'll share them both at some point, but for now, the one last night was incredible and real. So real that it was a wet dream. Oh my God. The first one I've had in over a year now. The 4th I've had since we met. Oh my God, stop talking. I've never had one since I was like 20 until we were close. Anyway, in my dream, I had taken you to the most incredible climax you had ever experienced. And as I watched you in our union, spiritual, emotional, physical, I exploded and woke up and I had literally exploded. I know you said that. Why do you got to repeat that? Oh my God, why are you writing all this on paper? I am sorry for being so open, but I did want you to know that I slept amazingly, except for my dream. And I wanted you to know you really do cool things to me, making me younger in some ways, which go beyond human explanation. Most young men never have a wet dream after their teenage years. I think it may be physically impossible in their 40s. So I know I shared way too much. Yeah, you did. Go back and delete it. But I also know I don't make up dreams. And God really has used you to give me life, spiritually first and foremost, and vitality, youthfulness. And even if I wanted to deny, I couldn't, because it occurs when I'm asleep. So there you go. This man had a sexual dream about this young lady he was grooming, and then he told her all about it. And why would you do any of this? And why would you write it to her? What the hell are we all doing here? Listen, I had to read that to myself. So now you have to experience. That's how this parasocial relationship works. I will read you all the weird emails I come across. So it gets more disturbing. Like if that was the worst of this would be a better story. But no, it gets worse. So anytime he made a physical move on this woman, she said she resisted, and then he would back off, but then it would just repeat itself in a cycle months later. And at one point, she said she was at his home on campus and she was showering at his home. I guess they had that sort of a relationship. But then he came into the shower with her, even though, and I'm quoting, she had locked the door. He just unlocked it from the outside and then barged right in to the shower. Yes. What else do we have here that you need to know? Staying in the family's guest room, she remembered waking up to find Reynolds on top of her, touching every part of my body, but still saying it's from God. And after a Bible study, she remembered freezing up when Reynolds asked her to pray on the floor. She remembered him pulling down her shorts and urging her to let him penetrate her. There was no part of me that wanted this, consented to it, she told the police officer. I just wanted to know Jesus. I didn't know who God was. I was so confused and I felt so trapped through it all. And she said she continued telling him she wanted him to stop. But here's the thing, and this is important for later. She said in her mind she wanted it to stop, but she didn't say that out loud because she just froze up. She tensed up and she was usually just silent as all of this was happening. She couldn't bring herself to verbally say, stop doing this. She just clenched up. And then in one other email, this is what this guy told her. I'm just asking you to be open that perhaps God is answering my prayer, that you kind of enjoyed it just a little, even though you feel upset afterward. So at this point, this guy knows she's not into this, and he's still saying, come on, you liked it a little bit. Yeah, so this is disturbing. So in 2018, according to this story, she finally got the hell out of there, found another job in Atlanta. She started working with some local church there, but it's away from this one. It's not connected to Truett McConnell. And she also began meeting with a therapist who helped her realize, oh, everything I went through, it wasn't okay. It was very disturbing. At one particularly low point in 2021, she actually texted a close friend that she had a knife at her disposal and she was considering using it. Thankfully, she did not. And in 2024, at that point, she had understood what had happened in a way she did not earlier, and she decided to tell law enforcement about what happened. And that's when she went to the cops. That's when the cops began bringing her in to question her and getting her story on the record. And they pulled in Bradley Reynolds and got his story on the record. But there were two key issues at this point for the cops. First question is, did anyone at the school know this was going on? Like, did they have a hunch this was happening? Could they have stopped it? Because that's a different issue that is going on here, and that opens the door to a bigger scandal. And the second thing is, well, is there anything law enforcement can do about this? And we'll get to the second question first, because the answer is pretty straightforward. No, there really isn't much they could do. Basically, what the law enforcement officials concluded is that, look, they were both adults. Yes, there was a massive power imbalance. But if you did not say no to him and this happened, it's not illegal. The article pointed out 14 states have made it a crime for members of the clergy to have sex with someone they pastor. Georgia is not on that list. So the fact that she admitted she did not outwardly, the fact that she said to the cops that she did not outwardly try to stop this guy, instead she said what she did is she would go inward and just try to disappear. That also makes it harder to charge this guy with sexual assault because there's no visible indication she's trying to say no. She didn't verbally say that. And they said the biggest thing is the statute of limitations has expired. So while there's strong evidence that Reynolds, when he spoke to the cops, he lied to them about some stuff, the bottom line is the White County Sheriff's Office, they ultimately decided we can't do anything with this. We don't think there's enough evidence to go after the guy, so they closed the case. But just because there's no criminal charges there, it doesn't mean there are no consequences, because after Haley Swinson realized the cops are not going to do anything about this, she said, well, you know what? Then I'm going public with this story. So this past May, she actually spoke with the Christian media outlet, The Roy's Report. And in May, by the way, The Roy's Report is a Christian journalist who publishes a lot of stories about problems in the Christian world. Julie Royce does a pretty good job, and her team, they do a really good job of reporting this stuff. And also she's a conservative Christian who holds views I don't necessarily agree with. But she posted this article. Truett McConnell University president accused of ignoring years-long sexual abuse by VP. And you can see from the headline there, it's not just about what Bradley Reynolds did. It is that the president of the university knew this was going on and did nothing to stop it. And how did they know that? Basically, according to the Julie Roy's article from May, a former staffer who was the school's Title IX coordinator, which is like the government's thing, like we give you funding because you need it, student loans and things like that. So we got to make sure students are safe on campus. And there was someone on campus who was the liaison with the government to say, yeah, this is how we're keeping students safe. He said he told the school's president, Amir Kaner, about his concerns regarding Reynolds in 2016. This is the Title IX officer. And what he said he saw Reynolds and Haley going to Reynolds' home when no one else was around. It's a small campus. They see things like that. But nothing came of that. And then guess what? That staffer who ratted Bradley Reynolds out, he was fired for some stupid reason. And then a former vice president of the school said, hey, I have serious concerns about what's happening between Bradley Reynolds and this person on campus. And apparently the president of the school said, and I'm quoting here, I'm paraphrasing here, that if you spread any more gossip like that, the person who is saying it will be fired. Like, shut your damn mouth is what the school's president said to this other person. What else did he know? Well, multiple former students said Reynolds was very touchy. Very touchy. And they heard rumors that he conducted inappropriate behavior with students, especially athletes. There was even a petition signed by over 50 female students on campus in 2019 saying his behavior had troubled them when he was teaching their theology class. Apparently, he told all these students to write testimonies about their personal trauma, leading some of the women to believe He's just trying to identify the most vulnerable targets. And yet, even though all this is happening, Reynolds remained on their staff until 2024. That's 6 years after Haley left the campus. And this is what Haley said in this article. And let me make sure I could find this here. This is what she told Julie Roys in an interview. And you have to feel for her here. I was groomed. I was confused. I was targeted. I felt isolated, like I was alone. It took, and it has taken, and it will take years of my life to unwind every lie that was told to me. Can you even imagine having to carry this burden for years, not just dealing with it, but then leaving campus, but still having it go through your head as you realize what you have just been through? I mean, I feel like this happened during the Me Too movement, where a lot of women came to grips with, wait, this thing that I thought was normal, or like I didn't like it, but I thought it's just a normal thing that happens, that wasn't okay. That was assault. That was something like that. And it turns out that's pretty common, right? So in 2024, it was only in 2024 when the sheriff's office was investigating all this, and Bradley Reynolds, told the school, hey, there's an investigation going on, and I'm part of it. That's when the school finally put this guy on leave. And then Bradley Reynolds resigned. And I think the thinking is you can't fire him if he quits. So he quit. And now he's gone. He is not working with the school anymore. But that means the school has effectively avoided any repercussions for what that guy did, and the lack of actions from administrators who should have known something inappropriate was occurring. No one had any consequences for any of this until Haley told her story, first to Julie Roys, then to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And by the way, when Julie Roys published her report in May of this year, she did ask the school for comment. This is what they said. Instead, Jason Graffinino, the school's vice president for finance and operations and chief financial officer, that's a lot of stuff to do, said via email, TMU has aggressively and proactively implemented policies that protect all students, including regular reviews of Title IX policies by outside counsel. He added, there had been no previous Title IX or HR complaints filed related to this matter. Had we known of this behavior earlier, Reynolds would have been immediately dismissed. Which, again, as I have explained to you, I hope, Haley did not know that what was happening was criminal, illegal. She shouldn't have had to experience any of that. So, of course, she didn't make a Title IX complaint. How many students even know what that means? Why would she go to HR? She didn't know this was happening. And the school's like, well, I don't see anything in writing that says she told anyone about this in writing, made a formal complaint. So I guess we did everything right, even though there definitely was a whisper network and there were actual employees saying, hey, president of the school, we think you should look into this because something disturbing is happening. Now, since that May article from Julie Roys, there has been pushback in some pretty impressive ways. So first, there was an all-staff meeting at Truett McConnell University, and the staffers asked very pointed questions, Julie Roys reported, about how the school screwed this up so royally badly. Like some professors said in a letter to administrators that they never should have learned any of this through the media first. How come the school didn't tell them this was going on? They demanded the school should have kept them in the loop. There were graduates of the school who protested on campus. The president of the school, Amir Kaner, he was placed on leave, and the local district attorney has since reopened the investigation that the sheriff's office has closed, though it's currently unclear if the district attorney is going to press any charges or do anything about that. There was one thing I did want to show you which is at the very bottom of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's article. And check this out right here. After this long article, they have a little thing about this story. How did we report it? And it involves like public records and all that. The AJC also obtained a copy of a Title IX investigation. Look at the very last paragraph here. The AJC attempted to reach Bradley Reynolds via phone, text message, email, and letter, but did not hear back. His attorney in the 2024 investigation also did not respond to a request for comment. Reynolds' name appears on health inspection records at a sandwich shop in Texas. A reporter called the restaurant and asked for Reynolds. The man who answered the phone responded, "No comment, thanks." They tracked this guy down. He does not want to talk about it, and it looks like he is not working with any company that is involved in the Christian world. So look, why am I sharing all this with you besides I had to read you that disturbing email that I had to read? It's not a story about one predatory pastor or an investigation that so far hasn't gone anywhere. I think it's about a Christian university culture that thrives on unchecked authority. Right? The problem at Truett McConnell isn't that they hired the wrong guy. It's that they created this ecosystem that just allowed abuse to fester. Right? Administrators were warned. Students spoke up. Staffers risked their jobs to raise concerns. And the people in power, who would have argued they are there because of religious authority, they chose self-preservation instead of the safety of the vulnerable. Like, what's the point of teaching the Bible as the timeless, inerrant, and absolute truth, which is what the school says on their website, when the safety of students is literally at risk because of willful inaction and quiet cover-ups? Like, what happened at this school is not unique. Liberty University had a lot of scandals with Jerry Falwell Jr. that were covered up until it could no longer be private. Right? They created a system meant to shield leaders from scrutiny, but both of these schools demand perfection from students, right? If students at Truett McConnell or Liberty, if they are caught having consensual sex with their opposite sex partners, they're expelled from these schools. But the administrators, professors assault a student or a former student covered up. Right? Like, this isn't some personal failure. This is predictable from top to bottom. You show me an authoritarian religious structure that elevates spiritual leaders to untouchable status, I will show you victims who are desperately waiting to be heard. And so my worry is not that another Bradley Reynolds will get hired on campus or emerge there. It's that unless they make serious changes on this campus, the system is just going to keep producing guys like that. And how many more women are there like Haley who have gone through this, but they have not yet shared their story? Very disturbing stuff. I don't know this woman, but my God, the courage she had to tell her story not once, but then twice. And more than that, because she had to tell the police too. But I'm grateful that she did, and I'm sure other students are grateful that she did as well. I'll take, if there's any questions here, otherwise I'll call it a night. Yeah, I mean, that's the right reaction to all this. Who else has he pulled this shit with? Yeah, I mean, that's the question, right? Because if you groom the one person, there's probably others who haven't spoken up, and we don't know those stories yet. A lot of psychopaths take advantage of Christians because they know what are the biases of many Christians. Just say you're a Christian and they're more likely to believe anything you say. Like, that's exaggerated a bit, but yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons there's so many stories about abuse within churches by the pastor. I mean, I get stories every day, or I see stories every day about pastors behaving badly, or a pastor who got arrested for just vile crimes. And I don't write about them because there are so many. And how did they get away with it? Because they're in a system where, because they are a pastor or a youth minister or a youth pastor or a minister or a senior pastor, they can get away with a lot of stuff and they can just do it in the name of Jesus. And you're not supposed to rat on them, because if you get them in trouble, now you're hurting the entire church and you're hurting the mission of the church and you're disappointing God. Like, it's very easy to hide behind the religion cloak, and it makes it harder to share these. It's hard enough to share these stories, but when it happens in a religious environment, it's that much harder to tell these stories. Yeah, this is entitlement, not religious delusion on his part. Yeah, he thought he had the authority to get away with this, and it appears right now that he has. That's why active verbal consent is a must. Active dissent isn't always an option. It's not that I disagree, but I saw this comment earlier as well in another thread. And again, it's not that it's wrong. It's that I kind of understand what Haley was saying when she said, I did not know this was assault. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I did not know this was assault. This was bad. My body didn't like it. I didn't like it. So I just kind of went to my safe place internally. And that did not involve saying anything out loud. It did not involve physically fighting back. I'm sure this guy was much bigger than her, which is a different reason also that you might not want to fight back. But if she's in that space, yeah, I could understand why she's not outwardly saying, hey, stop, no, don't do that. She's just internally trying to get herself out of it. I've heard that story from other women. I've read about that reaction from other people. So while active verbal consent is huge and active dissent isn't always an option, it is so frustrating to hear that here's someone who clearly did not actively consent, but because she didn't say as much out loud, that might make it harder for anyone to prosecute anybody. I am not the expert in this field. You all may know this better than I do. These horrible stories typify what conservatives want for this country. I don't have anything to add to that. I fear that you are right, and we're only going to hear more of this as more people are authoritarian and they give more power to religious people and they want less transparency everywhere. Next time, please end with the less infuriating story. Hemet, please. Listen, if there are less infuriating stories out there, you send them along. I wish those stories were there. I would gladly end on a happy one. And then I look through my list, I'm like, oh, there's no good ones here. Even the lottery story isn't a happy story. So, yeah, I'll just have to wait for there to be happy stories, and then I will gladly begin and end with them. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I know tonight was a late night. I had an earlier obligation tomorrow. So thank you, Den, for helping out with moderation. I appreciate it. Thank you all for sticking around. I will see you next week, I believe, at the normal time. So yeah, have a good rest of your weekend.